Why are the streaming giants taking the axe to so much content right now?
And can a crackdown on gambling ads curb Australia's online gambling addiction? Hey there, welcome back to Vertical Hold Behind the Tech News, the award-winning tech podcast where we catch up with Australia's leading technology journalists and commentators to dive into the big tech stories of the week. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm joined as usual by Alex Kidman, a man who keeps telling me he isn't a financial advisor but is still happy to fiddle the books. Alex, what's your dodgiest piece of advice come tax time?
Well, look, Adam, I've been considering your situation because you asked me to. And seeing as how you have a new puppy and it clearly needs some obedience training, I reckon you should claim those school fees.
Yeah, I think I should start writing for something like Dog Outlet just so I can claim everything I've ever spent on a day.
Dogoutlet.com. Actually, the scary thing is that probably, I have not checked.
There's the business
that probably has been registered.
New podcast, make it happen.
For sure.
Fans of Succession will know that the owner of Dog Outlet sold Logan Roy his mausoleum.
So speaking of dodgy, as you can hear in the background, we're joined once again by TV Blackbox viewer advocate Steve Molk. Steve, what's your dodgiest piece of financial advice for the listeners?
Oh, jeepers. Invest in your second favourite Adam and third favourite Alex.
Can't go wrong. So Steve's joining us this week because the streaming giants have also been crunching the numbers and decided that they need to axe a lot of our favourite shows. Then there's the free-to-air people who are maybe worry they might lose some money because they're talking about cutting back on gambling ads. But first, let's throw to the rapid-fire news desk. Alex, hit me.
Really? I mean, I didn't think it was that kind of podcast, but okay. But okay, in terms of tech news this week, there's quite a few interesting stories around. The federal government's released a draft bill suggesting that the misinformation and disinformation codes that digital platforms, so these are your social media networks and so on, could be overridden if the ACMA declares them to be ineffective. Basically, the idea here, Adam, is that they can have these codes, and they do all have some kind of, you're not allowed to say that, there's a space laser that's beaming COVID into people's heads. By the way, that's not a real thing.
Unless you're Twitter.
Just as well you cleared that up.
But that if you are judged by the ACMA to have an ineffective policy, that basically they'll be able to overwrite it and say, look, we're going to fine you for having a bad policy and potentially having to put a new one in.
So basically this should just be called the Twitter law.
Or the Facebook law, or the dodgy advice that one uncle of yours gives.
Yes.
I don't want to defame anyone, but yeah, maybe. Steve, do you think more needs to be done in this space? I mean, is this something where we should be stepping in and saying, hey, what they've got is a bit rubbish?
Yeah, well, definitely it is. That's the evidence to hand. Do we need to step in, or do you mean the people that make the laws need to step in? Probably the latter.
Adam keeps wanting me to hit people, so
sure, and that's his first problem. Look, I think that we're in a weird place, particularly when it comes to those sorts of things, because there's now lots of people leaving various platforms and sort of kind of self-censoring in that way, though there are also lots of people that are hanging around or doubling down and should be censored.
Yeah, possibly. Although, and this actually relates to one of the other news stories of the week, a woman in Queensland has discovered that it's perhaps not the best idea to defame your neighbours online, and that online speech has consequences.
What?
Yeah, really, for true. So I'm not going to name names here because, again, lawyers have been involved and I don't want to get involved in Australia's rather complex defamation laws. But $279,000 in damages, essentially for saying that her neighbours were pedophiles, which was not in any way true. We are not making that assertion in any way. But it's just, it is that reminder to people. And I think people really do forget this a lot of the time. They go on social media and they just go berserk thinking, well, it doesn't really matter. It's only up there for a short period of time. It's all in jest. It's all meant to just, that's what social media is. And the reality is in Australia, and even potentially speaking for content that can be seen in Australia, because there's also precedent for that.
Yes.
It matters, and it can matter to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I mean, perhaps people might be advised if they're going to make such allegations, as this person has, then they just have a lazy conversation with Ben Roberts-Smith and find out how defamation things go.
Just maybe. I
Maybe.
mean, it probably helps in that case if you have significantly wealthy people, shall we say, bankrolling you.
Well, I mean, it certainly helped pay the bills. That didn't help him in any other way.
Not as far as we're aware. But before we veer too heavily into the legal side of the world, I'm going to steer us straight back towards tech.
Great.
HMD Global, the people who make Nokia branded phones, have a new phone, the G42 5G. It has two interesting points to it. One, in Australia, they're only going to sell it in purple. And the other thing is it's their second phone where they will sell you the parts and provide you the guides to do things like replace the screen and replace the battery. Does this have any appeal to either of you two?
I would either be, is this a cheap phone? Like normally at that point, unless it's an iPhone that cost you an arm and a leg, you just bin it.
So the Nokia G42 5G will run you $449 outright.
Nah.
It is more expensive than the previous repairable phone they had, the G22, and a bit better spec at that.
If it's under warranty, get them to fix it. Otherwise, it means it's a couple of years old for $400. I'd probably just chuck it. If it was a $4,000 phone, that'd
you
be
mean
different.
you'd responsibly e-waste recycle
Yes,
it,
that's
Adam?
exactly
Don't
what
make
it
me
is.
hit you, because I will hit you for that kind of thing.
That is
I mean,
what I meant to say.
it'd also come down to the cost of those parts, right? If you're buying the phone for $400 and a replacement screen costs you $200, I'll be e-wasting that thing.
Forget about it. Yeah.
I think for most of the parts, they are a bit more reasonable than that. They have kind of kept that in mind. And I think the idea here as well is it's not that you can't take it to a repair shop and have it done.
Mm-hmm.
They'll sell them the parts too. It's for those people, especially, for example, if you're in remote Australia, where you can't just go down the local shopping mall. You don't necessarily want to be without your phone for ages. So you just get all the bits shipped to you. You have a guide, you crack it open. I will issue one note of warning here. I haven't actually tested the G42 5G. I did test the G22, and I know what I'm doing when it comes to hardware, generally
That's an
speaking.
allegation that the lawyers will sort out.
I've got considerable prior art that I think can back this up. But the G22, while I was trying to take it apart, my one broke. So maybe take it easy on that as well.
That's the other thing I was going to say. If you're trying to fix it, if you don't know what you're doing, you could make it worse. You're better off probably taking it to a repairer.
Yeah, I do wonder about the confidence of the general consumer in this. Although I think, look, broadly, this feels to me like it's a laudable idea. I agree with you, Adam. I wish it was on a better phone. I wish this was something that Apple made available here, hint, hint, like they said they were going to do.
You're a funny guy.
Yeah, I know. Speaking of funny, though, final quick news story. Adam, you know about ChatGPT, right?
What? No, you can't prove anything.
This is becoming rapidly clear throughout this entire show this week.
It wrote this script.
Well, it might have written this script now on a computer running Windows 3.11 because somebody's developed a ChatGPT client for Windows 3.11. I love this story, and I love it especially because in order to get it working, you have to install WinSock. And now I feel properly old again.
Did it wake up, become self-aware, and kill itself like that thing in RoboCop, the trial?
I doubt it because Windows 3.11, it's going to wake up, probably try and kill itself, and then run out of memory.
And just get into a reboot cycle where it just does that endlessly.
Yeah. ChatGPT could not find autoexec.bat. Rebooting.
Gosh. Oh, so many spine-chilling memories. Oh.
And that concludes the rapid fire vertical hold news desk. Now on to the rest of the show.
So, Steve, one of the things about when we, originally started signing up for services like your Netflix and your Stans and your Prestos pour one out was the idea that they would have everything that you wanted to watch for as long as you'd ever want to watch it. Now, we figured out pretty quickly that they don't have everything that you want to watch. But that idea that once something's there, it will be there is now well and truly out the window as well, isn't it?
Oh, well, I'm going to lean in to say yes, but I think it's just a temporary measure.
Mm-hmm.
So for people that are playing along at home, we know that, and I'm just going to use some quick acronyms, but we'll get across it. There's currently a writers' strike on in America. The Writers Guild of America, WGA, are on strike because they want to get a better deal. Now, in the first instance, the Directors Guild of America, the DGA, also went out with them, but then undercut them because they cut a deal with the studios and left the WGA hanging.
Nice.
Bastards, right? They totally left them hanging. Since then, as recently as this week, the Animators Guild, which ironically is where a number of writers actually find themselves members of, because guess what? The studios get to determine whether they're a member of the Writers Guild of America or the Animators Guild, depending on the kind of show you're working on. Fix that one. The Animators Guild has gone out with the Writers Guild of America, with WGA, and in but a moment, we are expecting SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, to formally go out, which will mean, so right now SAG haven't gone out, so there's still actors waiting to work or finishing bits of work. But if SAG go out, mate, we're not going to see any new content on our screens other than what's already in the can that the studios have been trying to hold on to for nearly 12 months. Like, it's going to be that kind of problem. Now, all of this then rolls into this issue where studios are starting to remove content from their platforms, particularly stuff that maybe even only got one season, as a negotiating tactic with the Writers Guild of America, because what the writers want is better residuals and in fact, even any kind of residual payment for work that lands on streaming services, because their current agreement doesn't allow for it. So back in the day, when you wrote a television show, you knew that if we get to, well, it used to be 100 episodes, it goes into syndication, which means it finds its life in a second and third sort of rerun territory or endless reruns. And as a writer, I'll get money over time as each of my episodes that I wrote or co-wrote comes back to me. And
you quids in, basically,
as
are the actors and, in fact, an awful lot of the rest of the production.
That's right. And many writers know, or certainly it used to be the case, that you make some money out of the first run of your program, but once you hit syndication, baby, that's where I get to just sit back and go, the checks are coming in for their cents and their mini, 50 cents and 2 cents and things. But that they would come in forever. With the advent and rise of streaming, there's nothing in any of their agreements to account for that. So if you were someone that wrote, let's pull up, I was watching a show called The History of the Sitcom that's on SBS at the moment, SBS On Demand, a CNN documentary from about 5 or 6 years ago, and Melissa Joan Hart turned up in the latest episode talking about Sabrina the Teenage Witch. If you wrote an episode of that and it just aired on normal regular television, as a writer, you'd get money. If it landed on streamers, you don't get any money. So if they sold that, the studio that owned that sold that to Netflix,
that's it.
No extra money for you, no matter how many people, how many minutes of that gets streamed. So the challenge that we face here is that writers want recognition of that. They want to be able to make sure that they're getting some money and making some money out of that. And then you've got the example of even more recent shows than Sabrina, the Korean writer of the Squid Game that made legitimately millions of dollars for Netflix, got a flat fee and has received no money for the fact that it has made Netflix lots of monies. Now, some could argue that he was unknown in the American, broader global context, and this was a risk, them picking up Squid Game and all of the rest of it. Look, I think that the reality is, if you're someone like Netflix and you are literally making hundreds of millions of dollars off the back of a TV program like that, the writer should get better than a flat fee payment of honestly not very much. So that then rolls back to, out of spite and as a negotiating tactic, the networks and studios are removing content from streaming services to stick it up the writers to say, well, mate, it doesn't matter what deal you got, your program's not even going to make any money because we're not showing it to anyone.
See, I just would not be crossing the person who wrote Squid Game under any circumstances. God knows what's going to happen to you.
Correct.
But leaving that aside, I just want to clarify, this is different then from two things we have seen in the past. Namely, well, firstly, just that kind of cyclic rights being bought by, Stan on and off.
Someone buys
Bond
someone.
films, for example. They have them, they don't have them. They got them for a season or a period of time. This is different to that.
Yes.
And it's also different from what we saw with, I think it was the Batgirl movie that Warner Brothers did, where they said, we're not releasing that, not because we don't think it's necessarily any good, although a lot of mixed reports on that one, but as a tax dodge, as a tax write-off.
Yeah,
This
Warner
is different to
Brothers.
those two cases, right?
That's right. In the Batgirl example, and there have been a couple of others since, Warner Brothers just went, we will make more money as a tax write-off by shelving this film entirely than running it or selling it or putting it on a streaming service. So that's one, and that is not this. And you're right, the other one is really just about a rights deal. So it's not that the show gets taken off, which is what's happening right now, taken off and vanishing. That's what we're talking about here. In a rights deal, like Stan, something moves to somewhere else. It's just going off platform A and moving to platform B because of a library rights deal that has meant that now this studio has signed with a different streaming service. So all of their content goes over there, except for the new stuff, which has a life of series contract, which is why you then saw things like some Netflix series that got, before Netflix properly launched here, we would see some of that pop up on your Foxtels.
Yeah, like
And
House
then
of Cards.
when Netflix did launch, it was on both simultaneously.
Because they still held the rights. But getting back
Yes.
to the tax dodge thing, my
Yes.
understanding, and I'll keep using Batgirl as the example just because it's the one I remember,
It's a good
was
one.
that because they're claiming the tax dodge thing, that thing, unless it literally leaks, is never getting released because they don't want to bear the tax burden. What they're talking about here is just saying, no, we are choosing not to release it. There may or may not be a tax break. I'm sure their accountants will look at that.
Yep.
But in theory, they could at any point go, yeah, all right, we'll release this. We'll continue producing this. It comes down to it's not gone forever because of tax rules the way Batgirl theoretically is.
Yes. And I just want to highlight, I am also not a financial planner and can't give you financial advice, particularly on the American tax system. However, the stuff that I've read and the stuff that I know about that is absolutely, it is a case of, because Warner Brothers in this instance have opted to lean into a tax write-off status for the amount of money they spent on Batgirl, it absolutely has been sealed in concrete and put at the bottom of the ocean. Because if it was ever commercially seen, leaks aside, then Warner Brothers would have to pay back the American government for that tax write-off. It is diabolical that whether or not Batgirl is any good, no one goes into making a program wanting it to be crap. In the making of the program, budget cuts, studio interference, problematic stars, all sorts, change in writers, change in directors can cause product to go from really good to maybe not great. And in that process, I mean, we just end up with it is what it is. And of course, once it's finished, the studio can note it to death and turn it from great into crap pretty quickly. Lots of people poured a lot of energy into that film and other such shows and series that just end up on the cutting room floor. At least to this end, everybody got paid. And in this case, they just don't get this is the critical thing in Hollywood, particularly, they don't get the credit. They don't get to be able to say, I wrote for this because it was never released. It's like the project never existed.
Yeah.
They maybe also don't get their percentage cut of the ticket
Oh,
sales.
they
if that
definitely
was
get
part of
no
their deal.
residuals, no sort of toy sale monies, no merch, all of that sort of thing. Yeah.
So if we're facing an issue where there's not going to be a whole lot of content and they're using this as a negotiating tactic, what are we left with? I mean, I would have thought if I was an evil Hollywood boss, which I'm not, again, not a financial advisor, not an evil Hollywood boss either, spoilers, but if I was, I would be more tempted to say, well, you're getting residuals for all those, episodes of Welcome Back, Kotter that you wrote back in the 70s or something.
Yes, excellent, great, deep cut.
I'll cut that. Because that's something which presumably you may be getting money for or maybe wanting to push to get money for more. It would feel to me, correct me if I'm wrong, it would feel to me, I'm going to do better out of saying, right, well, here's my wedge. Here's my Welcome Back Kotter-shaped wedge. I'll do that rather than cut like a Westworld or a Game of Thrones spin-off or something.
Yeah.
Because I would have thought the new content is the stuff that keeps people going. Or am I wrong? Is it actually the bigger libraries of old stuff? Are there people clamoring for I Love Lucy on Netflix?
Oh, I mean, it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. We know that for the streaming services, there's a couple of generations of us that have just fallen head over heels in love with them and it works and we're now paying all the monies to them because we want to see both the newest things and they have started to slide in some of the old nostalgic shows from our childhood or things that we just love that have found a second voice or a second life or even a greater life in a streaming context. You look at, as an example, recent history, a show like the American version of The Office has had a much bigger life, in no small part thanks to COVID, a much bigger life on streaming than it ever had in its first run in a broadcast, either in America or Australia or any of the English-speaking world. Just heaps of people have fallen in love with that and fell over it. There is an argument to be had that these older shows absolutely could find a life and a benefit on your streaming services. But really, that starts to appeal only to like your Gen X and baby boomers, and boomers struggle with the streaming services and how do I get involved in that? And there's little to no interest from your Gen Z, Gen Alphas in something like a Welcome Back, Kotter, except to look at it and go, that's problematic. Here's a case study on why television is bad and how we've gotten better. It costs a lot of money, as you'd expect, to convert stuff that is still sitting on Betamax tapes and other places in old analog formats to digitize it in a way that is deemed acceptable to make it available, which is why there's a really slow uptake on getting that older content put onto the streamers. We only really started digitally recording stuff in TV land like in the early 2000s at best. And even then it was expensive, and only your top tier drama stuff that made that happen because it helped with the editing and post-production process. They weren't thinking about the streamers necessarily because at that stage, Netflix still sent you discs. So how we see some of that benefit run, look, I think it's going to be a case of, in part, demand from the audience, but also acknowledging that we don't rightly and fully know how many people watch a show. And whereas the studio that owns it, if it's not the streamer, oh my God, they know. They know because that's part of the nature of their deal, and they get monies paid on it, or they've paid monies, or whatever that stuff looks like, and how they determine things. It is no question that some of the content may have vanished, either because there is problematic reasons with a star or a writer or a producer or a director, or because they just didn't do the numbers that we wanted it to, and we just want it to go away. And we got some life out of it, out of streaming, but it's gone. And you will just have to live with it. And you didn't like it in the first place, so don't complain about it that it's gone.
I saw that HBO Max in the US got rid of quite a lot of content. I think it was last year, as they was moving to the new. Did they
to
move
Max,
from
I think it's called
from Go to Max, whatever it was? Does that affect what's on Foxtel, or that would be a different kind of deal as to what Foxtel's got from HBO?
Yeah, look, in stuff, well, we already know that the library of content that we have available to us through that HBO deal that lands in Foxtel and Binge here in Australia is not as voluminous as what is on the now Max library in the States.
Yeah.
So if we've managed to eke out content that now has been removed from Max, I would suggest to you that it actually may vanish at the end of the contract that exists now, if indeed there is that sort of clause in the process. Or they might go, look, it's Australia. There's not very many people. We actually don't really care. Like that's the other part of the Foxtel HBO contract, or Warner Brothers Discovery contract, is that we are absolutely the littlest fish in the big pond. And while Foxtel pay them handsomely for this stuff, they might not give two craps about whether or not we've got series that no longer exists in the States but exists over here. But also that can be because some of that content changed hands in the background. Other company bought the studio that made that thing, and there's a problematic relationship between Warner Brothers Discovery and that studio. Or that studio's come in and go, we want more money for this. And they just go, it's not worth their time.
There's another danger here that, and I know it's already starting to do this. You can tell, you see some shows on Netflix, and you can tell that someone's sat down and done the equivalent of an SEO search of, okay, what do people want to watch? Because we know that as journalists, sometimes people come to us and say, we checked what people are searching for on Google. We want you to write this article. It's got to have these subheadings in it. You've got to use all these phrases. Yes. It's soul crushing, but it pays the bills, right?
Yes, it does.
Netflix makes shows the same way, don't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
And not just Netflix, mate. Yeah. They are all working on, and Amazon, of course, famously do it as well. But we know that Disney are paying attention. We know that all of the other services are paying attention. HBO, well, now Max, but HBO, because they can see from the algorithm of usage who's interested in what. I mean, famously, House of Cards existed with Kevin Spacey in that title role because Netflix went, gee, people seem interested in Kevin Spacey stuff and they seem to like Politico legal dramas. We should do something about that.
Yeah, you make it
Ta-da!
happen. Yeah.
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 And because a lot of that stuff is held in secret squirrel executive, 70,000th floor boardroom table discussions around what are we going to do and what are we going to commission, we won't rightly know what the thing is. But sometimes we can look at programs and go, you know what? This feels like they just went, there's the buzz person and the interesting thing. And 1 + 1 = Chat GPT wrote the script and here we are. It will continue. And that in part is what one of the demands, in fact, of the Writers Guild in this current strike action is that understandably they are concerned about Chat GPT taking jobs from them. And we just want to, I guess, put a little bit of a cap on that. This time last year, Chat GPT didn't exist in a public sense. So they're striking over technology that's been around for 9 months, but has fundamentally threatened their livelihood. Welcome to technology and television colliding.
Well, from the consumer standpoint, of course, the frustrating thing I would say here is that show that you liked, and you kind of mentioned the whole, oh, you didn't watch it, so therefore what are you complaining about? Well, somebody did, and we tend to view these things as individuals. You don't kind of think, I'm one of the 10,000 million people, whatever, watching this show.
Yes.
It's just, I'm sitting watching this show and I'm enjoying it, so I want to watch more, and suddenly it's gone. You mentioned SBS On Demand earlier. Quick wave hi to Jason.
Yes.
And one of the things that they do that I really, really appreciate, and I don't think too many others do, is they put an absolute end date on their content. You go browse through SBS On Demand and it will say available until date X. And you can be sure, right, don't watch it by date X. It's gone and I don't have the opportunity. And I have, speed watched some stuff because I've realized, oh, this is actually vanishing in 2 days.
Over it late or it's a limited window, right?
Yeah. Should more streamers do this? I mean, is it in their interest to do it, or should we force them to do it? Should there be some kind of requirement for this to happen?
I mean, if I put my consumer advocate hat on, absolutely. Absolutely, it would help us to know those things. And I follow a Twitter account that is essentially a bot that notifies you with, I think it's a couple of weeks warning that a show is going to be taken off Netflix. And then it gives you like a day's warning and then it tells you that it's gone. So that bot is obviously drawing content from somewhere to be able to tell us, but Netflix don't tell us that.
You sure?
Because Netflix historically, it's been a little while since I've looked at this, but I know people who have dealt with the Netflix API. Netflix in Australia has, to the best of my knowledge, I'm willing to be corrected on this, to the best of my knowledge, has never released a leaving Netflix list. They certainly used to release a
I know.
coming to Netflix list, although it was always a little bit incomplete. It was always pretty much, here's the highlights of what we want you to know about.
Sure.
There was always
see
more.
articles pop up that say these are the shows that are leaving your favourite streaming platforms this
I can answer that one. There's 2 ways that you do this. Certainly in the States, I believe they have released, or they have done releases. Chatting to some international journalists, for some other markets, they may well say, last chance to see kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, if you do know how to get into the Netflix back end, and admittedly, in a couple of years since I talked to anyone about this, and it may well have gotten a lot harder, but it was certainly a thing that could be done back in the day, as they say, you could see really discrete details like this until this date.
Expiry dates and stuff.
That would be, I would imagine, how your bot is doing it, is by actually looking into the back end. But it's not, in Australia at least, to the very best of my knowledge, it's not and never has been publicly released information in any way, or even information released to media-adjacent journalists.
Yeah. Oh, mate, even media journalists like myself don't. The Netflix don't publish that data to us. Mind you, in Australia, I think there's one person that works in the PR department for Netflix and the rest is outsourced to a PR company, and they don't care about sending us that detail, even if they have it. Look, we know that the expiry on those programs exists in part due to agreements. Now, it's studio owns thing. We've signed this agreement with them until here. If we sign a deal, we just change the expiry date. But often it'll be not enough people are watching this. We don't care about extending that deal. So it's ending and off it goes. The challenge is, and I find it interesting because I agree in part, Alex, we watch shows still in that kind of singularity where it's, I'm watching this and I love this. Why did they take my favorite show away? And we feel the same thing, but we have been experiencing this for some time. Our favorite products at the supermarket vanish for the same reasons. Not enough people are buying them, even though we might like said thing, not enough people are buying it to warrant doing it. Or an ingredient
Pour one
changes
out for
that
Fantails now if you're listening.
yeah, that's right. Or an ingredient changes that becomes like no longer available, or there's laws changing around the suitability and classification of specific foodstuffs. That, as an example, the amount of sugar in it changes its status from food to confectionery, and that then ruins their ability to market it in the way that they were wanting to market it. Um, that's been happening to us for years. So we haven't got used to that either. So we're not going to get used to it when it comes to television. It is a sad reality. I have known people go, "Oh, make sure, hey, everyone, if you're a fan of this show, just put it on in the background even. You don't even have to watch it. Just put it on so that all of a sudden lots of people have watched the show and it'll artificially inflate the numbers of interest and those sorts of things." I think we can all guess the studios can see through that. Like, as nice and as together as that makes us feel, the reality is all of this is business, and it is a business decision. And while you may not, Alex, be a corporate megalith empire builder, I'm certainly
Yet.
working myself on it.
Enjoying the show? That's great. Don't forget to subscribe, which you can do on every podcast platform you've ever heard of. Just search for Vertical Hold or go to our website, verticalhold.com.au, where we've got handy buttons for every single podcast platform.
So speaking of big money, gambling ads, sport,
Yep.
big money, painful to watch.
The sport or the gambling ads or both?
Oh, Alex, come now.
Don't
come
even
now.
start me. All right, don't even start me.
I had to do it.
That's it. Last episode ever. Walking away. I can't work with this man anymore. That's it. Done. What are the rules about gambling ads, and what are they talking about changing?
Australia's relationship with gambling, particularly related to sports betting, has been a long one, and I would say has hit some pretty fraught corners of late. The current legislation, in part through community pressure, hitting up their MPs and saying, hey, it is offensive that we're seeing rolling updates of, betting odds for this game appearing during the game.
Mm.
So the current legislation allows for effectively a blackout. It's only a couple of minutes, but a blackout before a game is broadcast on free-to-air television to a couple of minutes after. You can't update the odds during the game, but you can during the halftime or quarter time breaks. So that's the public broadcast aim on gambling. And of course, when we talk about free-to-air television, it's the largest mass market delivery mechanism that we have to get as many people watching one thing at the same time that exists right now. I'm not saying that won't change, but that's where it sits. So because of that limitation, gambling organizations who have deep pockets, as you would expect, Adam, are looking to sink their advertising dollar into as many places as they can legally find it, so that we can't escape their request/demand that we get involved in having a punt while we watch the game. So it means that now sports betting companies, of course, are all over social media. They are just dropping ads and trying to create viral content and funny things and getting us to like and watch and do all that sort of stuff, because a lot of us will watch the game scrolling through our social media platforms.
Yeah.
It makes sense. They're also now, and I think this is even a little bit more insidious, getting naming, like jersey naming rights or major naming rights sponsors for sports teams, so that their name of their betting agency is on the front of, or the back shoulders of the team that you love. Or, and this is even better, worse, depending on how you see it, they're buying the naming rights to the stadiums. So now no longer are we watching a game at, like I will say Lang Park as the example, though this is not owned by a betting agency. The naming rights isn't owned by it. Oh, is it Tasmania? No, that's Blundstone still. Or has it changed? I know that there's at least 3 of them that have changed to a sports betting agency named, like they have the naming rights for that stadium. And I mean, that's horrendous, because now if you wanted to be away from it, or even, and I don't want to sort of, sort of wail about this like who'll think of the children, though this is definitely a part of it. If you wanted to avoid or not be affected or impacted by the sports gambling situation, you now can't miss it because either on the ticket, digitally or physically, or you're telling your friends, I'm going to watch the such and such v someone else game down at Sports Betting Stadium. And it's like, it's just not cool. Like, it's just not cool.
So the three of us are old enough. Well, not Alex because he never watched sport.
Still
the
old
two
enough.
of us are old enough to remember the Benson and Hedges World Series cricket.
Oh, please.
And Winnie Red ads cigarette advertising all over everything.
Marlboro owning every siding at every Formula One Grand Prix for a year.
Yeah. And people
I seem to recall one of the major beer brands sponsoring, I think it was the Bathurst 1000 for a while as well, just to throw in a really ancient reference as well, which always seemed like a really bad one. But
that's great, isn't it? Alcohol sponsoring a car racing event.
And people at the time would have argued that we can't take cigarette advertising out of sport because there's too much money involved and it's just too important. And if people want to smoke, that's up to them. Who are we to tell them whether or not they should smoke? And we've
How
seen
did that work out, Adam?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. We've seen how that went down the path now to where there is a whole generation of kids who've never seen a cigarette ad.
Yep.
Now, how are we going down this path? Because we're treating, and I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying I can't see what the problem is with advertising.
That's usually my job, but I'm just not doing it for this one.
We're treating gambling the same as we treat smoking in that there is a public health hazard.
Yes.
But we haven't got to the point where we actually ban smoking, but we're stopped just short of that. But you're basically not allowed to advertise it or see it.
And taxing the life out of it too.
Yeah. Is gambling in danger of going down that path? And then they looking at what happened to the tobacco companies and saying, this is a slippery slope. If they won't let us advertise in the footy, what are they going to do to us next?
Yes, and they should be worried. Like gambling companies should be worried. I would offer, and I'm going to nail my colours to the mast here, Adam and Alex. I think that gambling in our society is horrendous and ruins lives, ruins families. It's gone well beyond we'll have a casual punt. Hey, mate, good on you. Well done. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's insidious.
You'll have to share some space on that mast with me.
Yeah. And
I think we just lost that sponsorship deal with the TAB though.
Well,
I can live with that, Adam. I can live with that. I can happily live with that.
And that's ultimately, actually, Alex, that is what saw the end of smoking advertising, because either pressure on the networks and the sporting events, or the recognition of a few people within those organizations where they just went, you know what, I think we can find our money elsewhere. I think we can do without this, because the community pressure was such that this smoking kills people. We've had this. I saw brought up on one of the comedy shows again recently that back in the day, the Flintstones in their black and white iteration,
Laramie cigarettes,
promoted smoking. Right, the Flintstones, a cartoon aimed at children, and sure, parents watched it. Yes, it was the cartoon version of the Honeymooners. It was in prime time. It still sold cigarettes to everyone. That's now ended and thankfully a part of our horrendous history. We when it comes to gambling, the same thing. The same thing is happening. Community pressure is building and growing, and that's causing problems for our betting agencies, which is why all of this other stuff is starting to knock on. I cannot tell you what will happen next week or next year or in the next decade, but I think what we will see is enough community pressure that pushes sports gambling out of our vision. And that doesn't mean that the business ceases to exist. It just means that it has hugely regulated advertising situations. We know, for example, that even in the last New South Wales state election, the government that stepped in, the Men's Labor government, and it was weak, but have offered like a pokies gambling card trial to try and limit the impact of, it's not sports betting, but gambling in its broader sense and its impact on families, because the community are asking for it. Now, the fact that it's this watered down version, I think we'll push through that pretty quickly and find that, yeah, actually you need to do this. In a sports betting context, absolutely the concern is that we had, when these first sort of issues came to pass, too many families were going, my kids can tell me the odds of how this team is going to go over this team, then tell me who the starting lineup is. Now, people might go, I don't care about sport. Fine. Bless you. When it comes to enjoying sport, and both, particularly the AFL and NRL, as the major winter codes in Australia, are promoting themselves as family sports. And it is antithetical to have a family sport promoting gambling because gambling ruins families. No one can come at me and suggest that it doesn't. It absolutely does. So if your kid is caring more about, whether or not such and such is going to it's $1.50 to kick the first goal, instead of going, actually, I like the team and I'm following this and that, they shouldn't know, but absolutely, B, they should not care. It should not even be in their vernacular. There are other things that young people watching sport, if they love the sport, should be caring about. So that causes some big problems, not just for the betting agencies, but of course, for the television industry.
Well, I was going to say, the TV networks are seriously addicted to suckling at the money teat of big gambling.
Oh, as are the AFL and NRL. Let's not be sort of step away from that. They are getting big money as a kickback in their deals with the sports betting industry.
But and look, you can get into the whole sports is business or is it entertainment or is it a social venture thing. I will not put forward an opinion on that, but I will say this. I had to go through a hell of a time online getting YouTube to no longer show me sports betting ads. Now, I've got no interest whatsoever, but I hit I want to complain about this ad. This ad is inappropriate for me. This ad is irrelevant for me. I had to go through that for months of saying, no, don't show me this ad. No, don't show me this ad, over and over and over again. And they finally seem to have got the idea of, hey, we're wasting our money trying to advertise to Alex. I at least had the power to do that. Now, it was annoying and far too convoluted to do it, but I could at least do it. If I was someone who watched sports on TV, it would drive me insane. And you've got no power as a consumer, even though you're the eyeballs that they want.
Bang on. And that's the challenge, right? Like, yes, people can say, well, don't watch the pre-match. Turn over at halftime. Mate, lots of people I know do, or they mute it, or they just walk away from their telly at that point, or whatever. But you can't walk away from it when it's emblazoned on the players' jerseys or is the literal name of the stadium, right? That constant reminder. Or, as we talked about, scrolling through social media, it seems to be a new sports betting company pops up every 30 seconds. And you can say, well, just block it. Mate, I do. I already do. That doesn't mean that I'm still not going to get served or presented with the new thing that keeps popping up. It is horrendous in that regard. And then, of course, we get the TV industry saying, sports betting gives us a whole bunch of our income, particularly around sport. It's important to us because that helps pay the bills, which gives you our product and allows you to see all of the great show that you enjoy from us. Notice I didn't say shows. It's, I think, in the same way as the smoking ban played out, so the TV industry has to find other sources of income. They're already coming in at a hiding to nothing about how they fund and resource themselves because they have two generations of young people who do not care who they are. They do not watch their products. They do not understand what advertising is and why they can't skip it or why it even exists in the first instance. So, our Generation Z and our alphas, they're not watching 7, 9 and 10, unless they're sitting down with mum and dad to watch the sport. And even then they go, can't we fast forward the ads? Can't we get out of those things? So television and advertising is broken as far as how they get to them. So they're trying to get to them any way they can. When it comes to this whole sports betting debacle around that, for the industry to suggest that, but if you take it away, we won't have any money to make anything good. Mate, I'm going to say to you a paraphrase of what Kerry Packer said when he was speaking to a Senate inquiry. I think it was about taxation.
It was.
And it's akin to, you're already getting enough of my money and you're not doing a good enough job with it now. Why should I give you any more?
And I mean, a little site called TV Blackbox reported on this extensively. I'm sure you've heard of it, Steve. I noticed with interest your reporting on that, or TV Blackbox's reporting on that. Also noted that Free TV tries to tie this into also getting Spectrum for free.
Oh.
I mean, is this just the most kind of ball-faced, right? Not only do we want all the gambling money, but please stop charging us money as well. We just want all the money. I mean, it felt really galling to me.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the challenge is, like any lobby organisation, which Free TV Australia is, that's their job, right? They've got to come out and give us the reason as to why things aren't good for the industry that they're representing and how possibly we can get the actual things that we want. And, mate, the free-to-air television industry have been banging on about wanting more spectrum for years, right? They already got it down to the fact that they pay nothing for it. That was always a huge burden. Ugh. But now they want more for free. I mean, come on, you guys. Again, you're not doing enough with it. Why should we donate more? So on one hand, full credit to Free TV Australia for doing their best to represent the interested parties to make sure that they're consistently and putting out the story that needs to be told. Frankly, fuck off. There is no way in the world that you should get any more spectrum to do anything more with, not least of which is tacked on to the idea that, but if you take away sports betting, how will we get more monies? But please give us more spectrum so that we can put out more stupid, 24-hour, advertorial networks and put another racing.com as a channel on there. Don't even start me. It's such a, it felt really shoehorned and it was a pretty poor way to do it. I get they're trying to do it and perhaps they need to get new PR Jedis at Free TV Australia. I would offer that there is, to come at this from another angle, Channel 10 have announced that they will not be bidding for the Melbourne Cup rights again. I think they've got this year as their final year. Seven are apparently interested, and given Seven's long relationship with the Melbourne Cup, that would make sense that they'd be interested. But part of the reason that 10 cited that they're stepping away from it is that Tabcorp want to change the nature of the relationship where essentially any of the advertising, and this is me paraphrasing, so please, any of the money that they get during the broadcast of the Melbourne Cup Carnival, half of it goes to Tabcorp.
Oh.
Say what now? Like, excuse
That's
me?
cheeky.
Oh, cheeky is an understatement, mate.
Yes.
They don't need the money. They're already ruining lives and making money hand over fist by just the people that engage in their business
But you don't
model.
understand, Steve. They want the money.
Oh, no,
It's a Robert Raccoon situation.
What if I want it more than you?
Yeah.
And that's absolutely what's going on. Tabcorp want it more than anyone else. So it puts it in this place where, and look, spoilers, of course it will end up on a channel, probably on 7. But if all 3 commercial networks said, we're not doing that, we're not going to agree to that deal, we're not going to pay that money, the Melbourne Cup is on the anti-siphoning list. Who broadcasts the Melbourne Cup if the 3 commercial networks don't want to pay to do it? And please, I'm saying that wouldn't be a bad thing. Like, I don't want it on television. I think that in the same way that sports betting is insidious, so is horse racing. It's a sport that exists only to take money from people and to ruin horses. So, I'm going to make myself doubly unpopular. Have a punt if you want, but frankly, are you turning up to the horse's funeral or are you holding the sheet up when they shoot it? Because every year for the past 6 years, a horse has broken down and been killed at the Melbourne Cup. Sounds like a great business model.
Fun for all the family.
So we're not going to get that sponsorship deal either. And I just got a call. Menthol Moose is pulled out as well. We're really going to struggle here.
Yeah. Well, look, and I apologise that I've caused that problem for you, but I do not back away from my views on gambling, sports betting, horse racing. I think they're horrendous and should not be a part of polite or pleasant or even just our modern society.
And I'd like to state that Vertical Hold and Alex Kidman, Evil Genius Megacorp Enterprises 100% stand behind those convictions. We won't be taking on those sponsorships anyway. Well, that just about wraps up this week's episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to Steve for joining us this week.
It's me, Molkio.
Well, Molkio, now it's time, as it usually is, for the Vertical Hold 3 Questions of Doom. You know the drill. Where can people find your work online? Where can they find you on social media? And given your status as Australia's streaming TV maven, what's the one show that people aren't watching right now that they should be?
So many great choices. Look, if you want to follow me, I'm at Steve Molk on most things. And of course, at TV_Blackbox in the same way. That's the mob that I write for and I'm a part of. But of course, me, if you want to find and follow me, I'm probably... I'm wavering with Twitter, as probably most people are. I have established myself an account on Mastodon. I'm Molk at oz.social if you want to find me and have a chat with me over there. I'm certainly more relaxed over there. And it's probably
Everyone
less
is.
TV talk over there. So it could be a win-win if that's the kind of thing that you're after. I would put to you, so I've missed the second question, Alex. What's the second one?
Where can people find your work online? You've mentioned the
Oh, I've
brand,
done
but
that.
maybe mention the URL
All
once
right,
or twice.
tvblackbox.com.au. That's tvblackbox.com.au. Have you heard of tvblackbox.com.au?
What's that URL again?
I believe it's something to do with a black box. When we talk about shows that people maybe aren't and should be watching, I'm going to be really gentle but quick and give you two. Both of them just happen to be on Prime Video as a matter of interest. One of them is called Jury Duty. And this is a just hilarious television show, 8 half hours. It is the Truman Show in a legal context. So there is one guy who is on a
I
jury
heard about this.
who doesn't know that he is the only guy who isn't an actor in the entire process. It's a civil trial. It was pitched that they were looking for someone to participate in a documentary about America's jury system. And that's the premise and reason that he got involved in it. But everybody else is an actor. And like, it's gobsmacking. He's such a nice guy, and they throw everything as far as wacky, crazy, stupid, silly, inane, ludicrous things at him. What is it initially pitched as a 3-day jury trial turns into 4 weeks. Like, it's outrageous. And he takes it with such good measuring and such good humor. You'll love it. You're in on the joke from the get-go. Like, the setup to the TV show, they tell you this. But you will not believe the things they do to him. And then the things they film to maintain that storyline, even though you're in on the joke. I'll just leave you with one word: soaking. The other thing that you should be watching over on Prime Video is an excellent Australian comedy. They are hour-long episodes, 8 of them. They are nearly finished. It's called Deadlock, and it's written by Kate McCartney and Kate McLennan, the Kates of the Catering Show fame. It is absolutely a comedy, is absolutely a whodunit. A small Tasmanian town opens with a murder, and the local police, as poorly resourced as they are supposed to try and work out who done it. And everything starts to unravel around this central senior sergeant who seems to be the only sane person in all of Tasmania, played by Kate Box. Phenomenal. It is so funny. I've been fortunate enough to see the whole thing, so I know who done it. If you start watching it now, the 7th episode is this week. The final episode is next week. So you can get on board early, late. You can get on board ready to watch to find out with everyone else who done it. It's amazing. Big caution. It's as sweary as anything. And you might learn some words to swear with. It's pretty good.
Well, hopefully that one will still be on Amazon Prime Video by the time people are listening to this show. And as always, you can catch us online at Vertical Hold AU on Twitter, at the Vertical Hold Facebook page, Instagram, and at verticalhold.com.au.
Thanks, everyone, for dropping by. And don't forget to drop us a line. Tell us what you think about gambling ads. Tell us what you think about them taking your favorite shows off streaming services. And tell us what you think we could do better in 2023.